Save Mr. Newland's leather and get out of this place.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to this video where we will be discussing Fritz Lang's 1944 film noir Ministry of Fear. This is a great little film full of wartime dread and paranoia. Another excellent adaptation of a novel by Graham Greene, who was the author of The Third Man and Brighton Rock. This one plunges us into the eerie shadows of a world all messed up by war. It's a great little thriller full of double agents and espionage, and not to take anything away from the cinematic legend that is Fritz Lang, but this film is one of the most Hitchcockian non-Hitchcock films ever made. Let's take a look. So one of the things I recently noticed on rewatching Ministry of Fear was how fast it flies by. And yeah, admittedly, it's not even 90 minutes long, but it really does cram a lot of plot into its short runtime. I'm usually more of an advocate for cutting blow out of films that are too long, but this I think probably could have handled another 20 minutes because the final third is a bit of a whirlwind. But before we get to that, the hero of Ministry of Fear is a guy named Stephen Neale, played here by Ray Milland, who spent the last couple of years in a mental asylum for his possible involvement in his wife's death. After he's released, he makes the seemingly innocent but ultimately ill-advised visit to a charity fair. He's only there for about 5 minutes, but in that time he's managed to visit a palm reader, guess the weight of a cake, two seemingly innocent activities that unwittingly embroil him in a Nazi conspiracy.
Just tell me the future.
My instructions are these. What you want is the cake. You must give the weight as 4 pounds, 15.5 ounces.
All's well until he boards a train with a blind man. And it's not long before Neale is soon in over his head and knee-deep in a mystery he must solve to stay alive. Hi, I'm Stephen at Real Classic Film Reviews. Guys, if you are a fan of classic films or just great films in general, it would be much appreciated if you could just drop a like on this video, maybe even consider subscribing to the channel for more classic film reviews. So Ministry of Fear is very much a film of two halves. The first is so gripping in its introduction of all the various characters and plot possibilities that once it settles into a more conventional spy chase movie for its second half, it's still great but slightly less gripping. But in its brief running time, it does feature a few sequences that stand out not just in this film but probably in all of 40s cinema. And one such scene that's one of my favourites is an eerie foot chase through the countryside that has an added element of danger as the characters find themselves below a nighttime air raid. And the other probably more famous scene is a mysterious seance scene that for a few minutes throws us off guard and has us believing that maybe a supernatural element could be at play. The first time I saw this, I wasn't quite sure which direction this film was about to go in.
Clock stood still. You murdered.
Who speaks? Who said that?
The circle breaker.
Who told you that? Turn on the light! The light!
So much like many of Alfred Hitchcock's movies, there is a MacGuffin, a thing that drives the plot forward. In this case, it's a cake made with real eggs. Obviously a wartime luxury, but it's one sweet treat that you're probably better off not winning. And so you can't really have a good old-fashioned wartime thriller without a romantic interest in there too. And here Neale makes friends with Austrian brother and sister Will, Carl Esmond, and his sister Carla, played by Marjorie Reynolds, who does a great job on the whole, but does slightly struggle with the accent in a few places.
I'm terribly sorry, but I couldn't help it. People have baked some sad-looking pastries to sell at our fetes, but was it as frightful as all that?
Frightful?
That you'd come all the way from Lembridge to give it back.
So Carla pretty much immediately takes a fancy to Neale, but who can he really trust in this world of paranoia and double crosses? I do love a story where you think that you know the villains and how things will play out, but the rug gets continually pulled out from underneath us and the main character. One of the villains we are aware of is played by the great Duryea. He's a menacing presence, especially whilst wielding some enormous clothing shears in one critical scene. So Ray Milland is on solid form here, as well as the hapless hero who was probably better off staying in an institution, to be honest. I love that he's not a simple, clean-cut, wrong guy in the wrong place hero, but a pretty haunted guy, finding his demons following him everywhere. We do get to witness his deep-rooted guilt whilst he and Carla are caught in an air raid and forced to shelter in the London Underground, where we find he's clearly and rightly troubled by his past.
I got the drug for her.
carried it home. Then I couldn't go through with it. I hid it in a drawer. And she found it. I didn't know until just before she died.
Now, acclaimed director Fritz Lang brings that almost gothic darkness to the party that's an added bonus, that atmosphere of gloom and uncertainty that hangs over everything, and of course it has one of my favourite film titles of all time. Being a fan of Graham Greene himself, Fritz Lang had wanted to purchase the film rights for Ministry of Fear, but in an odd twist of fate, Paramount actually approached him to direct it first. So in movies like this and his previous efforts, Manhunt and Hangmen Also Die, Fritz Lang was pretty instrumental in the invention of the modern spy thriller, really. Even though Ministry of Fear is often classed as an out-and-out film noir, it does have a lot of noir elements to it, to be honest, and the fact that it's directed by Lang does feed into that, with the Austrian director's name being pretty much synonymous with dark German expressionism. And although it also comes from a Graham Greene story, Ministry of Fear isn't quite at the level of something like The Third Man, but it's still a solid drama. Directed by Fritz Lang at pretty much the midpoint of his career, it really does have an overwhelming feeling of vintage 40s Hitchcock, which is absolutely meant as a compliment. It's a fast-paced mystery of deception, Nazi agents and war secrets, all played out amongst the day-to-day life beneath the Blitz. Go check it out.